Welcome to the Surrogacy Warrior podcast with your host, Kimberly Surratt. Join us as we dive deep into the heart of surrogacy, offering insights, sharing stories, and providing advice. Our mission is to illuminate every corner of surrogacy, from the emotional roller coasters and legal battles to the triumphant moments of birth and beyond. Surrogacy Warrior is more than just a podcast. It's a community for anyone touched by or interested in the transformative power of surrogacy. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, lawyersforfamilies.com. Now here's the host of Surrogacy Warrior, Kimberly Surratt.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Kim Surratt. I'm your host, your advocate for creating families through surrogacy and other reproductive means. Today, we are visiting with Dené Hunter. Dené is an experienced surrogate. And Dené, how about introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe what inspired you to do surrogacy.
So my name's Dené. I'm a single mother of two here in Reno. I started the surrogacy process to help families. I had been on Facebook, and on my timeline came up some stories of women who were unable to have children themselves. And reading some of their stories is pretty heartbreaking. So I decided I wanted to be the one to help complete those families so that they could experience motherhood.
So, the motivation was to help these families. Would you say, is it all just altruistic, or did you have financial reasons for doing it also, emotional, personal?
I would say first it was helping them. And then once I started doing some research and realizing what you do get paid, I started thinking about my own life, like, wow, that can help with A, B, C, and D. And so my goal for my family was getting money so that I could buy a house. I had owned a house way before COVID, sold, and then obviously inflation took over, and now I'm trying to get back on my feet into a house instead of renting at $2,000 a month.
Well, and if people who don't know, we're in the Nevada, and Nevada is just, it's unbelievable how much we've been growing. So it's hard to explain maybe to everybody that's listening to this, but so how did your family and friends take it, or, receive the information when you told them you wanted to be a surrogate?
At first, most of my family was definitely against it, but they didn't understand at the time yet until I had explained where it's not my eggs. They definitely thought it was, and that I was just giving my babies away. And they were not okay with that. But once I explained the IVF process, that it's the mother's eggs, the father's sperm, and how it all goes about, they started to open up. They were still worried where if I could be in labor, things happen, and I have two little ones to take care of. So they were scared that if those extreme circumstances happened, that I would not be there for my children. So that was still very hard for them to be okay with me having a baby for somebody else, because I was putting my life at risk when I have children to provide for.
And how did you come to grips with that? How did that make you, it's hard when family starts to kind of come down on you for a decision you're making that's to do better for your family, right? So how did you grip with that?
It was hard at first. I just kept sending some articles and positive stories to them to hopefully show them like it's not all negative.
Positive reinforcement, like puppies.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, look what I saw today. You should read it. So yeah, it took a lot of work. I would say for like your older generation, like my grandparents, it took about half of the pregnancy for them to even finally be like, okay, this isn't so bad. But my mom was on board from day one. She thought it was amazing. She wished she would have known before she had her hysterectomy, because she would have loved to help families. So she thought it was awesome. So at least I had her support from day one.
Let's talk. I know. I mean, people are going to be watching this. Some women will watch it. They're trying to decide if they even want to be a surrogate themselves. And, it's rare. I mean, we go on the internet and it's kind of amazing actually how few stories there are. And it's hard to find the information. So, I mean, if you could tell people a little bit about what was the matching like with your intended parents, like that process? Did you have specific criteria you were looking for, or absolutely didn't want to work with? For most people, they're going into this brand new, which is what you were doing when you started this, of course.
Yeah, I would say my first match, because I was new, I obviously really didn't have many expectations. I was just along for the ride just as much as the IPs were. With my first
IPs
one,
for the public, intended parents.
yes.
We have our own lingo in this world. Yeah.
So matching with my first, I decided to do international. So that one was a little rough just because they didn't know English and I did not speak Mandarin.
Okay.
So we had a translator, and also with just the time zoning, it was so hard to have communication.
Right.
So that one, I definitely feel I was completely alone. Like I felt like it was almost my baby because I couldn't experience, like I would send text messages with pictures, but I wouldn't get a response. So that one was hard. And so I knew when I went into my second surrogacy journey, I wanted that communication. I wanted somebody in the States where we could speak the same language and have each other to lean on and feel like I'm sharing this experience with somebody else instead of just myself.
Did you have emotional highs and lows through that experience? I mean, being pregnant is an emotional high and low. I'll be really clear.
Yes.
As a woman with the hormones and everything else. So, I mean, beyond what regular pregnancy things are there highs and lows emotionally in doing this journey?
Yes. And I also feel so I had a family where they weren't at all involved. And then I had a family that was very involved. And sometimes I would consider that a little controlling. So that made it hard because it was like, I've had my own kids. I had a surrogacy journey beforehand. So when you have a family telling you what you can and can't do, it's like, wait a minute, I had 4 other healthy babies. I know what I'm doing. So it gets rough because you're trying, it's almost like you're co-parenting with complete strangers, but over a child that is not technically yours, but it is in your body. So you're like trying to do what's best for your body, following your doctor, trying to make the IPs happy. So yeah, it's a roller coaster more than your normal pregnancy that's your baby.
So if you were giving advice to intended parents that were listening to this, I mean, just based on what you just told me, what would you tell them? I mean, what would have made it, what's good advice for them on how to pursue their journey and not make their surrogate miserable, I guess? Not that you were miserable, but difficult.
Communication is best. I feel like just being very open in the beginning. I feel everybody, when you're in the matching process, everyone is just so excited. They just want to get the ball rolling and get pregnant. But I don't think some people realize that you have the next 40 weeks of being together. And some of the questions that come up once you're already pregnant should have been questions that came up in the matching, so that you knew not only what your surrogate's like, but then for the surrogate to know what the IPs are like. So I think the matching process is where you kind of get down to the nitty gritty. Like, don't be embarrassed, be very open and know what your expectations are. So that way, once things are said and done and a baby is on the way, you don't have that friction on some of the topics that come up during, like, for instance, there would, like, one question would be like, well, are you being intimate with your partner? Well, yes, because that's my partner. But there's some parents that don't like that. They're like, well, I don't. That's our baby inside, and that's something that definitely should get brought up beforehand. Because once you're already pregnant, it's not like the surrogate's just going to stop having sex with her partner.
Right, right. Well, only because I know this about you, you're extremely athletic too. So
Yes.
your desire to continue being healthy and doing your exercise, and it's not exercise, you do more than exercise. Be clear to the world, she's phenomenal. But you're hiking, right?
Yes.
You wanted to be able to continue to hike and stay healthy, but there were some struggles in having those conversations with intended
Yes.
parents.
Especially like where we are in Reno, Nevada, we have the Sierras in our backyard. I'm hiking 10 miles every week, sometimes twice a week. And so my body is used to it. And even though you're pregnant, some IPs don't understand, like, for me to just completely stop would be more harmful than continue on my exercise plan. I'm an avid spin. Also, I do about 100 miles of spin. I do 10 to 20 miles of hiking. I do a 2-mile
World, I
run.
told you it's a lot.
So it's like it's hard for some IPs to realize how active I am, and they think that I'm harming the baby, when I'm like, I'm just keeping my body healthy to provide for your baby. So yes, it was very hard, because even a doctor, the OB, tries to explain these things, and they're kind of like at that, in their mind frame, it's bad because they read Google.
Right.
Google can give you really an answer to each argument. It just depends on how you're Googling the answer. So
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think they're thinking just, sedentary lifestyle, stay still. It's only, 9 to 10 months.
yeah.
And so we just don't want you to trip and fall or, make a mistake, that kind of a
Yeah.
thing. But, what I would encourage everybody who's listening is, surrogates are still human. That's the reason we have Dené on the show today, is to show you, look, real person, real human being, and their lifestyles don't need to completely change just for you. If they do need to change for you, that means you probably weren't matched well, meaning they were doing drugs or something that didn't make them a good qualified surrogate to start with.
Right.
Right. So let's talk about the IVF procedure itself, because obviously that's getting pregnant naturally doesn't go through that. Were there anything about that process that surprised you, or you would want to warn other people about and say, hey, this was not what I was expecting?
I would definitely say my IVF with each pregnancy was completely different. I feel like it's up to that IVF doctor. So every time, so I've been pregnant 3 times with surrogate babies. Each time was new. It felt new to me, just because the doctors had different policies, different ways they wanted to do things. I had one where they put me on a thyroid medication, even though I don't have bad thyroid. So you're questioning, like, why am I doing this? Should I do this? Is it going to harm me later because I don't need it right now? It is hard to kind of trust a doctor you don't know, because it's the IP's doctor, and you have your doctor on the sideline saying you don't need that. So it's like you're in this middle between doctors. So that that is hard, but I think the process itself is awesome. I mean, I love science,
Right.
and so I'm okay with being the monkey and having these just, I mean, to get pregnant with someone else's eggs, someone else's sperm, the embryo process, the hatching process before it's implanted into your uterus. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal. So that is exciting, and it's amazing to go through, not only just to see, but to actually be the person that's helping create the miracle of the baby. So it has its ups and downs, but yeah, each doctor has a different protocol. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, no kidding. So, how old were your children when you were carrying as a surrogate?
So my first one was 2019. So I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Okay. And did you have to explain to them what was going on when you were pregnant, or?
My 2-year-old really didn't understand anything. She would just say babies in my stomach. Like, that was it. My 4-year-old somewhat knew, just because she had gone through it with her sister when I was pregnant with her sister. So I had explained that this time around, this baby's going to another family because I'm helping another family, that it was not ours to keep. And that pregnancy, it was kind of still a big conversation where I don't think she fully understood what was going on. They were still there for the delivery. They got to hold the baby. They got pictures with the baby. They thought that was pretty cool. But then once they held the baby, took their pictures, they were like, okay, I'm done.
It's time to go home alone.
But as they progressed, because then another where unfortunately the baby did not make it full term. And so they were now 4 and 6. So now they definitely, especially my oldest, was understanding of everything. That one, though, I had told her there was a possibility I would help another family, but knowing the issues with the embryo, I'd never told her I was actually pregnant, because we never knew if that embryo would ever be viable.
Okay.
So that one I tried to hold back and just let it play out and see what happens, because I didn't want to have to explain why it didn't make it. And yeah, I felt like that was even more to try to understand than just moms helping another family.
Right.
And then my most recent surrogate she was born 23. So I had an 8 and 6-year-old. So they definitely understood what was going on. And that one, they knew from the time it started through the doctor's appointments. I mean, everything. I was very open, just because now they're old enough to understand.
Right.
What, even you see a pregnant woman outside and they know there's a baby in there.
Right.
So that one I had to be very open and to bring them along. So I did include them, and I got one of those at-home Dopplers just so they could play. They like to play doctor on my belly. I wanted to make it fun for them too, but then still talk to them like, we don't get to keep it. We're helping another family. And I had shown them the pictures of the baby's mom and dad. So that helped, where they could take a picture and understand, like, okay, that's going to be the mom and dad of that baby. It's not my mom. It was nice when they came to town, where I had asked, I was like, hey, can I introduce you to my kids? Because I'm trying to make them understand, like, it's going to be okay. Like, the baby is going to a nice family. Because my oldest had a lot of questions, like, is it a good house? Is the house clean? Do they have bedtimes like we do? Like, he was almost like a little mom, and I had to make sure she understood, like, everything's gonna be okay, and that these are the parents. So I wanted to keep her very much in the picture. So,
were the intended parents okay with that?
I wouldn't say they weren't okay. I just don't think they were very open or kind of soft from my point of view as already a mom and trying to make my children understand the process. They didn't really understand that yet because they didn't have kids of their own. Mm-hmm. And I feel even just in the general public, you always have people trying to tell you, oh, I would never do that when I have kids. It's kind of like that same mind frame that you're not really there yet and you have no idea what it's going to be like until that baby comes home.
Right.
So you always have even I did. I had these images of how I would raise my kids. And then once reality hits, it is very different.
Yeah. When you think you could get your kids to like what you like, it doesn't work that way. They don't.
I'll never give my kid fast food. And there are days where I'm like, have the McDonald's Happy Meal, okay? Just have it.
Just have it. Exactly.
I'm not cooking. So I feel that would be really helpful for IPs just to know, like, especially with parents who have older children, to kind of help make those children understand. Because I don't want it to be where I don't talk about it and then they're just later on like, where's the baby?
Right.
And be really confused. I'm definitely a mom that's very open with my children about anything and everything. So I don't hide secrets. It's especially when they're going through it and they're seeing my body change. Kids are kids. They weren't very nice when you get out of the shower and they're like, oh, you're so big. And I'm like, you don't see that. So they're seeing you change, so they need to know what's happening.
Right. So after the birth, what was that? Was it different than you expected it to be emotionally in the hospital at that time of giving the baby to the intended parents?
Yes. So my first one was something that is not typical. I basically took the baby home for the first week. That's something that usually never happens.
We don't want it to happen.
No. So when that happened, then even like I had said during the pregnancy, I felt very alone. I even felt more alone when I'm taking this baby home, and I kind of have those, did I give this baby the right family? Did I, all these questions are going through your mind of, I messed up. Like, I don't think these people deserve a baby. They don't want to take their baby home. So that was very different. And then, of course, because they weren't there, you don't know what they're wanting. And as just a mom, I started breastfeeding the baby because it's got to eat. And so I bonded with the baby for a week. So I would say it was very hard when they came finally to my house. And it was like a 30-minute, give me a rundown because we're leaving to Canada today. And it was like, wait a minute, what? You haven't been here all week.
Yeah.
So I had to show them how to change a diaper real quick. I had told them that I was breastfeeding. So then they were like, so then what should we give the baby? And I'm like, well, now if you're leaving today, formula.
Yeah.
So we had to run to Walmart real quick, and I showed them a couple of brands that I would choose for my children. They grabbed a couple of like the little cans, like samples, almost like not an entire full can, just to try them. and then how to make a bottle. They didn't know how to make it. So I felt inside like I was giving this baby to teenagers, even though they were in their 50s. So I was the mom instinct in me. I was scared. I was like, oh no, what did I do? And then the most recent, though, the mom definitely read every baby book. So I feel she knew what to do, how to swaddle,
Right.
all of the things. So that was helpful with knowing that the baby would be okay. The only trouble I had with that one was in our agreement, it stated that I would get 2 hours with the baby, and I did not get that. So that whole 9 months in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get 2 hours with this baby. I'm going to be able to say my hi and goodbye all in a day. And then when the baby was born, I didn't see it ever again. So that was, I feel like that was even harder than it was to
Yeah.
bond with the baby for a week and then give it up than versus I had in my mind, I'm going to get that time and then not get it. And especially at that postpartum, that first 24 hours, your hormones and emotions are everywhere. So to have that happen in that time frame was rough. I don't think I would, from just that would definitely be something in the matching process if I ever did it again, that I would be very open to asking, hey, are you up for giving me time to say hi and goodbye? Or because if not, like I would pass, because I did not like that feeling at all.
Well, and we're careful. We're now very careful about it. At least a good percentage of attorneys are. I am. But for those that are wondering, I mean, you can ask for it, like Dené just said. Ask for it. Get it into your contract. Have it be part of the matching process. Relationships have to sustain through the whole journey. Because it's only so enforceable what I can put in the contract. I can put it in there, but chasing it at the end of the day is not necessarily feasible. But same thing with telling intended parents they have to be there 7 days before the due date, and that they must take the very next plane ride if there's an emergency delivery, etc. There's ways to work with this, and there's ways that we these are good lessons for people to hear, of things to watch out for and to advocate for themselves. And it was one of the reasons I wanted you on here, because I will sing praises to the world that you are a very strong advocator. You will advocate for yourself. And that's what surrogates need to do, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it, like, you have to be, I always say, your number one supporter. Otherwise, I feel some IPs, unfortunately, not the mother, but the father of one of my surrogacies was very much, we choose surrogates because they feel that we don't have money to fight them in a court. So it's,
wow.
If you don't advocate for yourself, there are unfortunately IPs out there that feel that they get to use and abuse you. And if you're not going to stand up for yourself, you're going to be taken advantage of. But that's not for everybody. I'm not saying all IPs are like that. I think there are amazing IPs out there. But yeah, you definitely need to speak up, be open, have that communication, because once everything's said and done and you're pregnant, like I said, you're in this co-parent relationship, and it's like instead of 18 years, it's the next 10 months, and it can be nice or it can be bad.
Right.
So it's like, try your best on both parties, not just IPs, surrogates too. Both of them need to be open and honest with each other. Because it's the only way things are going to work. You don't want to be where at the end, like in my case, where all of a sudden we had agreements and the agreements weren't being met, and now you hate each other, and the hospital can tell, and they put you on completely different floors so that there's no drama.
Right.
And that's an awful feeling, because that's not what I wanted at all. So it's definitely a high priority to keep the relationship in good standings on both ends. So that way you don't have that scenario and everybody gets what they're looking for. IPs hopefully can be in the room with the surrogates as long as everything's gone well through the pregnancy, and then the surrogate at the end gets to say their highs and goodbyes real quick and gets to watch you hold your baby for the first time, because I didn't even get to see that. And that was also hard because in my mind, I wanted to hand the baby over. I wanted to see the excitement on their faces. I wanted to be a part of that happy picture. So if you don't have that good relationship, you're not going to get that at the end. And for a surrogate, it almost feels like you don't get that reward feeling, or that you're not closing the door the way you wanted. And so it kind of leaves a bad taste in the surrogate's mouth.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that having been a surrogate has changed you as a person, if at all?
I wouldn't say changed me as a person. I think it has educated me on the experience between the IVF process, parenting, dealing with complete strangers that you're having a baby for. But I wouldn't say like it's changed me. I've had good and bad with my journeys. Obviously, my first one was very lonely, but it didn't stop me from trying again, because I do understand, and at least I believe that there are good people out there. Like, that's not all your journeys are going to be bad. So I definitely believe it just depends on the people, and it's like with anything else in life. You can go to a restaurant and have a bad meal, but the next time the experience is awesome. It's
At the same restaurant. Yeah, exactly.
So it's the same with the journeys, I feel. So it's like, just because if there are surrogates watching that have already done this and had a bad time, if you really want to do it again, I would say do it again. Like, don't let that one time remind you of bad. Like, it can be different. It can be a happy experience. And same with IPs. If they have already had a baby and they were like, oh, I hated our first time. Well, you get to pick a different surrogate, or if you want to do it again. So maybe the next time will be better. But yeah, it's almost like a dating process, right? Not everybody fits together. So that's why at the matching, you really want to be open with each other.
Yeah. Do you think, what are some of the biggest misconceptions you think people have about surrogacy?
Number one is that a lot of people think it is your baby.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you're just giving it up. And a lot of people fully believe that you're just this bad person because you don't want your baby. And it's like, it's not my baby at all. Like, I'm an incubator. So that would be, I think, the number one that people have a misconception of surrogacy. Another one is, a lot of people don't understand there's actual legal paperwork, and it's not just, oh, you're matching with two people, you're getting pregnant, and either the surrogate doesn't give the baby or the IPs don't come to get the baby. They have this feeling where things can go so wrong. And I always explain, there's attorneys involved, there's legal paperwork. The surrogate has to give the baby. The IPs have to come get their baby.
Right.
So that would be, I think, the second biggest one that I've always had people, well, how do you know they're coming to pick up that baby? I'm like, oh, I know. It says right here. So yeah, I feel like it is getting bigger, but when I first started, yeah, I
big
feel like a
difference.
lot of people are not educated at all on this process. But now that I feel like it is booming and a lot of people are talking about it and coming out and giving their experiences, people are starting to be educated and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Like they had no idea. It was like I said, they just thought I was getting pregnant out of wedlock and then giving it up.
Well, in hospitals are more experienced now. I mean, I've been doing this 21 years since my first surrogacy, and everybody's more experienced at this point. So it's just, but I still run into people saying, that's all you do, Kim? Yeah, that's 100% of what I do. I don't do anything else. So there is that much surrogacy. So, big picture before we wrap up, if you could summarize your entire surrogacy experience in one sentence, what would it be?
It's bittersweet. It is. It is bittersweet, and it's just like your own pregnancies. Every time is a different experience. It's fun. There's bad, but I enjoy being pregnant. So I think it's the coolest thing.
I'm glad you think it's cool. And again, I want to sing your praises to the world because I don't think enough of my surrogates advocate for themselves. You are not shy in calling when you needed help. And I wish more of mine would. I wish a lot more of them would. So those that are listening, reach out. Communication is number one, absolutely, without a doubt. You can't get anything resolved without communicating about it. So if no one knows it's an issue, it can't go anywhere and nobody can assist you. So, all right, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Surrogacy Warrior. I hope you found this discussion enlightening and empowering. If you liked it, continue to like us. Go on to all of the million different locations that we are on the internet and hit like and follow and give us feedback. Your feedback helps me decide what additional shows you may want and listen to. Stay connected with us. There's lots of surrogacy information on my website at www.lawyersforfamilies.com. Lots of resources, lots of blogs, and additional information. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. Together, we are warriors. Until next time, stay strong and keep fighting for your dreams.
You've been tuning into the Surrogacy Warrior podcast with your host, Kimberly Surratt. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, lawyersforfamilies.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.